You can support this podcast and get shows early and ad-free, as well as bonus episodes over at patreon.com/flashback64. Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined as always by McKenna.
Hello. And
this is a big episode.
Yeah.
We're talking Quest 64. There's been a lot of anticipation for this one, so excited to get into it. And we've got coming along with us on our Quest 64. We're joined by our pal and returning guest, Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, skip right past me to the important one.
Well, our guide on this journey couldn't ask for a better guest. Also returning guest and pal, we've got Mike, a.k.a. Quest 64 Official. How's it going?
What's up, guys? Great to be back.
Good to have you, of course. Yeah, couldn't ask for a better guest for this. Look, I want to get into talking about Quest, but I actually have quite a large flashback segment. We're going to talk about that first, and I'm just getting right to it so that we can, have time to discuss Quest 64. But could I have put this flashback segment in our next episode, which came out the same day as this one, and it's a way less interesting game? Yes, but I kind of wanted to see, I kind of want to talk to you guys about some of these things. So here we are, flashback. Quest 64 in North America came out June 10th, 1998. We're moving forward in time from our last game, which was actually this week where both Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. and All-Star Baseball 99 came out. So we're moving forward from our baseball era, and now we're on a quest. Number one song at the time, The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica. We're in the first 2 weeks of June, and it's going to stick around for a while. Yeah, it's a classic. Number one album at the time, it's actually the debut album of DMX. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. Yes, DMX is finally in the world. And then also for 1 week, the City of Angels soundtrack finally gets a shot to be number one album. So good for you. You made it. We're at, in terms of movies, we're in the second week of Godzilla being at number one. It's wrapping it up, and it's going into The Truman Show, which is the number one movie for 2 weeks in a row.
He was adopted at birth by a corporation and raised on live television without ever knowing.
How are you, Truman?
Vital signs are good.
And my ring cam.
Is he looking at us?
Does he think he knows?
But the only thing they couldn't control
I'm onto something, Marlon. Something big.
is what he'd do if he found out.
Find him.
Gonna do it again?
Jim Carrey, The Truman Show, rated PG. In theaters everywhere, Friday, June 5th.
This is a bummer segment here, I'm sorry, but May 28th was actually when Phil Hartman was tragically murdered, which is a horrible loss. We were watching a thing recently, like kind of going over his life and stuff, and he's like had his hand in so many, amazing things in the late 80s and 90s. We've of course talked about him a lot on our Simpsons episodes. He's like basically my favorite reoccurring characters are his. So, rest in peace, Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm just a caveman. I fell in some ice and later got thawed out by some of your scientists. Your world frightens and confuses me. Sometimes the honking horns of your traffic make me want to get out of my BMW and run off into the hills or whatever. Sometimes when I get a message on my fax machine, I wonder, did little demons get inside and type it? I don't know. My primitive mind can't grasp these concepts. But there is one thing I do know. When a man, like my client, slips and falls on a sidewalk in front of a public library, then he is entitled to no less than $2 million in compensatory damages and $2 million in punitive damages. Thank you.
May 28th to the 30th was E3 in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right.
So this was there's kind of a lot of cool stuff on this one. This was when the Dreamcast was announced.
Never heard of it.
Which is why I wanted to talk about it with you here, Andrew. You're one of my most Dreamcast coded friends. So
Nice.
Thank you. That's very kind.
also the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Camera were announced.
Nice.
Privately, they showed Duke Nukem Forever, which that's funny. Also at the show was Final Fantasy VIII, Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid, Pokemon, and Ocarina of Time were all the big games on that show. So a hell of a run of games there. They're cooking for sure. Also, just video games released around this time. For the Saturn, you had Burning Rangers.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, does that do anything for you?
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic game.
Okay, we've also got, just to tie into our World Cup thing, on Neo Geo, you had Neo Geo Cup 98, The Road to Victory. We talked about how there were all a ton of licensed and non-licensed World Cup video games, so that was a cool one to see. On PC, you had Descent Free Space, The Great War.
There we go.
There's a colon and a hyphen in the title of this game. Okay, and then finally for PS1, you had Jeremy McGrath, Supercross 98, Jersey Devil, Klonoa, Door to Phantomile, Risk, Road Rash 3D, Vigilante 8, and VT Baseball 99.
Klonoa is my beautiful baby son, my beautiful little Wahoo rat boy. I love that child.
Mike, any of those stand out to you? Any faves there?
I mean, I probably played the Jeremy McGrath game the most. Dreamcast, too. That was, like, formidable for me as well. Me and my brother ended up trading in our entire Nintendo 64 collection, like, in early 2000 for all Dreamcast games. Little did we know that the Dreamcast would, like, be dead by the point we did that. But
yeah.
It seemed like such a leap up from Nintendo 64 that it didn't, like, phase us at all. And we got, like, looking back, it was probably like 30% of the Dreamcast collection for our handful of Nintendo 64 games. So we played a ton of Dreamcast for the next couple years after that.
Right on.
That seems crazy coming from you. That you gave up the N64 like that.
We kept the system. We just, most of the game, we traded like all of the Mario parties in, like Mario Kart, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, anything that would have gotten us any money towards Dreamcast games, which were like not expensive at all then. Most of the games at the store, even like, what was it? Resident Evil, was it Code Veronica that was on Dreamcast? Yeah. And then that Zero X, like every game was like $9.99, $8.99, $7.99. So we got hella trade-in for all these other games that we hadn't played. So it was a good deal.
Yeah, rules.
Okay, that checks out. That checks out. I forgive you then.
Thank you.
Hello, we are Kirby Conversations, a podcast on Kirby, along with other adjacent subjects like Smash Brothers, HAL Laboratory, and other related Nintendo games.
In each episode, we take an in-depth, well-researched look at a Kirby topic, drawing on our decades of experience playing Kirby games, creating Kirby-related content, and working in and around the video game industry. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a theater and video game journalist.
And my name's Bridget. I'm an online Kirby commentator and collector.
Our team also includes photographer and Nintendo ambassador Kai Captain Dangerous Parker and Gigi, the editor-in-chief of Wick Kirby. Join us for deep dives into Kirby's history, interviews with industry professionals, and even inside looks at Nintendo, as together we explore all things Kirby and HAL Laboratory. You can find Kirby Conversations on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Quest 64 is a role-playing game where you play as Brian, an apprentice mage on a quest through Celtland to find his father, who is left to find the Elltale book. He'll use earth, water, wind, and fire spells to battle enemies in a hybrid turn-based real-time system. Brian can also use his staff for melee attacks. Through battling, he'll gain experience needed to level up his stats, such as attack, defense, and agility, as well as each element. He can also collect spirits around Celtland to level up his elements. Items found in chests and given to Brian by the citizens of Celtland will heal him, restore his magic, and provide temporary buffs. Through his journey, Brian will explore towns, take on bosses to collect the elemental jewels they've stolen, and save the world from evil in Quest 64.
All right, so Quest 64 is also known as Holy Magic Century in Europe and Elltale Monsters in Japan. This was developed by Imagineer, who I think we've talked about one of their games on here previously with Multi-Racing Championship. Published by THQ in North America, Konami in Europe, and Imagineer themselves in Japan. And this is a case where it's one of the games we actually got sooner than other regions, which is usually, well, we usually get the reverse. So, Mike, before we were talking, like, you know, in the lead up to this, that you mentioned the idea that I'll probably say at some point on this podcast, like something like, you know, you've probably been asked this a bunch of times on other podcasts. And I'm going to do that a couple of times, of course. But also, this is kind of not a hard game, but it's interesting to talk about because I feel like this is also a game like a lot of I think of weirdly this compared to something like when we first started and talked about Mario 64, believe it or not, where it's just like this game has been talked about a ton. Like there's just a ton of discourse and stuff around this game for different reasons. But anyway, something that you've probably been asked a ton, but what's your history with this particular game?
Like just about everybody else, unless you were like from a rich family, I rented a lot of video games. We only bought like one video game a year, maybe two, if you had birthday money or whatever. But Nintendo 64 games were expensive. We were lucky to get the system Christmas of '96. So like it was hell at the end of '96 and the beginning of '97. There was only like 12 games, and some of them came out and were like, I bought Turok because I we needed another game, and I went to Walmart and it was like $89.99 without tax. And that was like, man, all the money that I had. I had like $100, so that I had like $5 left over after tax. And then like to get home and Turok was just okay. Hey now. I mean, like, it's like obviously I played the hell out of it, but like, because that was like I knew I was committed at that point, But so we rented games all the time, and we had to drive like 10 miles to get to the closest rental store because I lived out in the country. And when Quest came out, I rented it once and was like immediately smitten. So then anytime it was available when we went into Captain's Video or Blockbuster, I would just rent it. And after a while, my mom like got irritated because she played games with us. My parents were really cool about, playing games when we rented them for the weekend. And, we had at this point, like 3 controllers, and Quest 64 was a single player game. So, if I'm only going to rent 2 games, or me and my brother were going to rent a game apiece, if we both rented a single player game, that kind of like shot the whole weekend for gaming as a family.
Oh, yeah.
I rented it about 5 or 6 times before she's like, she just bought it. She just bought the game.
Nice.
So then that didn't take up a rental spot. So that was how I got Quest. She just came home with it one day. She's like, I don't want to see you renting this anymore. Here you go. And that was kind of because you got it used from somewhere. We had a pretty good selection. Even like places like Shopgo would like put out their returned video games like as pre-owned with stuff. I'm sure she got it on a deal and just knew it was fate. It had to come home, so she didn't have to spend one of the 2 $5.99 rentals or whatever on Quest 64. So then I had it. It was great.
I totally forgot about that concept of like strategic rental, where like you do have to, there's like the sibling negotiation of, not just like game time, but like rental time. So that took me back a little bit. With Quest 64, though, I'm sure most people know, but just to let our listeners know, like you have this Quest 64 official account. What it sounds like you've just always had a love for this game, but what made you kind of just like start that account? What was sort of the inspiration behind that?
So I have a couple friends that own video game stores. You're friends with the guys at Press Start. I've been friends with Zach for like 15 years. And we have a pretty good like local video game scene with like Facebook groups and stuff like that. That's kind of petered off since Facebook took a Twitter turn a couple years ago. But we used to have like local game groups, and we'd, buy and sell from each other and trade and post memes. And I always, the joke was that anytime anybody posted a bunch of N64 games, that I was the only one that cared that Quest 64 was for sale. And I was the only one that, so then I said, fine, bet. I would post Quest 64 memes and then every time one of the stores had a copy, I would just buy it. Like, I'm going to buy it then. Fine. And then, so I just started doing that after a while. And so I wasn't really on social media minus that until I started the Twitter account, however many years ago, 3 years ago or whatever. And I was supposed to be paying a parking ticket, and like the parking ticket portal was down online. So I was looking at my phone waiting for it to refresh, and I saw this stupid fucking tweet from Elon Musk saying that you could pay for official like titles on his app if you paid $8. So I'm like, well, bet. So I was going to go on and like make the Quest 64 official account. And as soon as I got to doing it, I'm like, you know what? I'm not giving him any money. This is stupid. So then I just made the account anyway. And I have no personal account on Twitter or Blue Sky or anything. It's just, those are my accounts. And I just kind of ran with it from there. I had a phone full of memes already. And so I just started posting them online in other places.
See, I think it says a lot about the account that I thought it like predated that era of Twitter, like where like I didn't know it was tied to the verification thing. I thought it had been around even longer. So
no, I just instantly came online and started annoying people, going on like Nintendo 64 pages and like correcting people about how many RPGs are on the system, and talking about how the Hyrule smells like cat pee and stuff. And
Aiden Chronicles fans get bent.
Yep.
I love it. Instant classic. Because I have, like I just mentioned earlier, how Quest 64, there's a lot of discourse and reputation that it has. But I think now too, like the account is like actually a major factor in some of its reputation. Like I have some friends. I was talking to one of my good friends recently, just who's also, a gamer, and was like, well, what are you working on next? And I said Quest 64. And he was like, oh, I don't know anything about that game. Like other people I talk to will say, oh, that's one of the worst, or oh, that's underrated or something. But he was just like one of the few people I've talked to that just had no opinion on the game. But he said, but you got to get that guy from that account on the podcast. And I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. So I think to some people, like, you are what they know about the game, period. So congrats for that.
You speak for the Brian.
Yeah. I don't know, like, necessarily how I feel about that. Like, I could just, I feel like I could just disappear from the internet and like nothing would change at this point. Like, I'll just like, I wonder where that Quest account went. Gone. So it's fine.
Like a search and rescue.
Yeah, but like it's not like people would stop doing the meme thing if I leave. It'll keep going. I think
you started a movement. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, so on the flip side, we're both. This is a new game for both of us. But Andrew, I think that's the case for you. I figured this is a game you know a lot of just maybe the cultural consciousness about it, right? Like it seemed like a game you'd probably be aware of, but you're new on this journey with us as well, right?
Yeah, I've never played Quest 64. Like, it's been in the water, it's been ambiently around, and it's been in this kind of like weird, vague, like memetic status forever. I remember looking at it when it came out, and I was, very young and had just started like Ocarina of Time or whatever, and was just like, what is this name? What is this thing? And then, just over the years, I was like, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. I know that it caught a lot of, like, it's the easy butt of a lot of jokes. And I think, I do think a lot of that is down to the name. I think if it was called Holy Magic Century Everywhere, it would be significantly less of a meme. It's just like having such an aggressively generic title on it. Feels like it paints the rest of the game in a really weird light that kind of removes a lot of its own identity in a weird way. But no, I never really knew much about it. I think the last thought that I had about it that wasn't related to your account, Mike, was the Computer Lab Hijinks videos. I think he's done 2 now on the kind of just like unfinished status of the game and the kind of like, I don't know, narrative swings that it's taking in terms of like, he has a whole bit on like the Tolkienian idea of like the, what is it? You want to say Eucharist. It's not it. It's a eucataclysmic storytelling and stuff. But Quest was just the background. It was a weird like background piece of like N64. I don't know, like the kind of miasma of N64-ness in the world. This is kind of like the iceberg of that culture. Yeah, but like I never knew much about it. And then one day I saw more than like 3 seconds of video footage of it, and I saw that there was like kind of a like the combat system was like positional and elemental and kind of like active. And I was like, oh, that's significantly more interesting on its face than I ever knew to expect from this game. And then certain somebody shit posted about it a whole lot. Real good for a long time, to the point that even having just played through this entire game, I still, looking at your face on this call, I look at Brian and I'm like, no, that's you. That's you're Brian. That's your, your face. That's him. That's you.
I do have that same association.
For sure. But I think eventually I was like, okay, I need to know what this is. And Mike, I messaged you about it, just asking like, hey, I know you have a bazillion copies of this. Could I buy one instead of just going down to the store that's like 3 minutes down the road? And you were like, nah, I got you. Check this out. And you sent me this copy. And then when it arrived, you posted that it was the copy that you had taken around and posted a bunch of pictures on Google Maps.
That's been in the dirt.
Which is still funny.
It's been everywhere.
I was like, okay, well, now I have to play through it. And so I did. And then I messaged you on the side. I was like, I'm sure you've got people banging down your door for the Quest 64 episode. And I don't want to insert myself into this thing. But like, I feel like I've been given a blessed object now. And it would be disrespectful of me not to use this opportunity appropriately. So I was like, even if I'm just on in the background a little bit, I would like to contribute.
We're all here to honor you and your game that you made.
Yes.
That's what the new thing that's going to come out of this is you actually made the game.
Wild.
And Andrew, I know you had some, I don't know if this is more related to the game, but you had your own little quest that you had to deal with in regards to that cartridge or to that game. What happened?
Yeah. So I stupidly spread my stats around a little bit too much early on, and just did not have the HP, the defense, the damage output, or the like spells necessarily to deal with the Nepti fight. So I had to go pick up a Game Shark and make some value adjustments to some of my stats. And
you respect.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to get through to the other side of that fight and finish the rest of this game. And I was just like, man, because you can't leave that area. You can't
oh
really
my God.
do any kind of like leveling or anything. Like you'd probably spend at least a few dozens of hours doing the amount of combat you would need in that space in random battles to be able to level up enough to, like, it would be faster to restart the game at that point. So now I had to run down and feed poor Brian to a shark, but we got there. We got to the other side.
Yeah, the game has a few. We'll definitely talk about. There's a few, I think, like faults that maybe the game has.
What?
And that, some, Yeah, we'll talk about the reputation. McKenna, did you know much about the reputation of this game going into it?
I didn't know too much about it. Mostly just like the Quest 64 account stuff.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, seen some teasers for it in Nintendo Power. This just like cool upcoming game.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype, honestly, in some of the excerpts we read. Like, there were like certain articles where it's like side by side comparing aspects of it to like The Legend of Zelda. So maybe maybe that's kind of like not setting it up for success, probably. But
yeah,
yeah, that was sort of my. So obviously, like, kind of the. I don't know if it was ever. There's ever really been. There's a lot of various discourse about it, like negative, a lot, and then reevaluation, and a lot of it. It's never in the position to be talked about as like the worst game or anything like that. I'm sure there's some people who go kind of nuts about that, but the Nintendo 64 has some really obvious contenders for that almost anyone would think of.
Banjo, Conquer.
Oh boy. But I think a lot of the obviously like a lot of the negative discourse about it is more around it, maybe comparing it to other RPGs from the time. Like, I have a couple of close friends of mine who are really into RPGs, and they have like this really strong negative memory of this game because who knows, some of them might not even have played it, but they obviously had a lot of negative connotations around that. So that's kind of how I knew it as, but I was kind of looking forward to trying it regardless. And I ended up finding that while, yeah, like maybe it's lacking maybe deeper RPG elements, there's a lot of unique things going on in the game. And as more of an adventure game, I think it's honestly kind of neat. And we have not, at this point in time on the Nintendo 64 library in our journey, McKenna, we have not played a lot of games where you are just like a little guy in a 3D world and you run around and talk to people and go to towns and travel places. So it's I think it's actually, considering where it is in context of like the N64 history, like it's kind of a novelty still.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stuff is still level based. Not a lot of freedom to just like go where you want. This is still pretty linear, but
yeah, for sure. You're kind of still moving just from area to area. You don't often really. There's a couple moments where you loop around and backtrack through like a section or a little region, but still, it kind of creates that.
It gives illusion. That big adventure feeling.
Yeah, we've only really, I think, Mystical Ninja is really the only other game we've played that kind of feels like it. So
yeah,
I think there's something to it with that, at least.
Hell yeah, Miyazaki took that idea and made a pretty popular franchise with it. So
that's right.
Also, I should also throw in. I should throw in. So, Andrew, you got your copy from Mike, and it came from the great,
thank you again, by the way,
great state of Michigan, or not Michigan, Wisconsin. Oh boy, I fumbled there. Your copy came from the great state of Wisconsin, and I should have thought to ask you for a copy. But funny enough, I got my copy from Press Start Games as well. So we were all playing Wisconsin-based cartridges for this. So there's a lot kind of channeling that energy.
Did you go into the store and buy it, or did they reserve one and send it to you?
My friend Cal picked it up for me, actually, and we went up and visited them. But I actually did go into the new location that store has, and it's quite nice. So
yeah,
this is a plug for Press Start Games.
I plugged them a few times on a couple shows too. So I was the only person on the Quest 64 waiting list for like 8 years straight. So anytime anybody else wanted one, they were number 2, and then I'd walk in and Aaron or Cal or Zach would be like, well, do you really need it? Or there's somebody else on the list now. So like, no, you can give it to him. That's fine. I'll get the next one. Not a big deal.
You're hoarding quests.
Well, it was more a joke, because like I said, like you can't, there's a reputation to uphold. I'm going to be the one that buys it, Yeah.
One thing I'd like to touch on real quick is what I was just mentioning about like that RPG thing. For me, like I've never really thought about it when I was younger, like that the N64 has this reputation for not having a lot of RPGs, which Mike, you could tell us all the ones they did have. But when I guess I didn't really like, I grew up sort of like I had an NES, but then I kind of grew up with this console. And so that's never really been a genre that like I actually spent a lot of time in growing up. And it's only been in more of my adult life that I've actively been like, okay, I should play Final Fantasies and these sort of series that I've started to go through. But I don't know, was that clearly wasn't something that you were thinking of as much of, Mike. You said you love the game. Like, did you think about it that way as like an RPG, or was it just, how'd you view the game at the time?
No, absolutely. Well, right before the N64, we had mostly Nintendo stuff. So I played Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we had Sega, and I played some Phantasy Star games, but I had just gotten a used Super Nintendo and was playing Final Fantasy 2, which I guess was 4 here, right before this game came out. So I was like, that was in my wheelhouse at the time. And then of course it was different. Quest was much more like Dragon Quest 1, you are one dude, no, not a lot of exposition. Go get the 4 things, go to 4 corners, get 4 things, and save the world. And I'm like, hell yeah, Dragon Quest again. Here we go. And that was like, and like you said,
but thou must, baby. But thou must.
It got compared to a lot of like, Final Fantasy VII was out, and we were on Dragon Quest. I guess I don't know which one was out over here. Maybe we were on 5. I didn't play any of those for the DS, but
7 was around this era on PS1, right?
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I didn't have a PS1, so
me neither.
But yeah, like RPGs had moved on from that. Unless you played like Sheeran, they'd moved to like party and exposition and dialogue, and Quest was traditional grindy linear RPG stuff. So yeah, but it more so because of what I was playing at the time, it probably hit me different. I didn't play Final Fantasy VII till years later, and obviously it was great, but I didn't have that as a comparison point. It was just, I was playing traditional RPGs and then this, and then everything else was multiplayer. So
yeah, that's interesting to think about. Like, it similar to like how I was just thinking of like adventure games, and how like this is one of those like pre-Zelda N64 games where it's like, if you look at the like exact specific time it came out, like there's a lot of factors where like some of those nuances, or like some of those big things we think of as like big leaps in development, like could have easily missed someone, and they like look at a game like a totally different way, because like we haven't lived through years of Final Fantasy VII at this point, where we felt more of its impact. Like at the time it was not I'm sure it wasn't like wholly unique, but it was like this spectacle that probably Imagineer couldn't have seen coming, or like they couldn't have predicted that. So
the crater was still smoking.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, Andrew, you mentioned the battle system earlier, and that was kind of like a thing that actually stuck out to me as sort of unique and fun and novel. It remained pretty fun throughout the game. even though I feel like I felt like this was a cool idea that I wish was developed like more. Like I wish there was a bit more to it, but overall, like the way it works, how you're kind of like, it's turn-based, but you have like a little bit of an arena that you can move around in like actively and dodge things. Like I thought that was actually kind of fun. I wish it kind of came into play more.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Up through the end, I was still really having a lot of fun with that. I mean, the final boss fight doesn't really use a lot of that positioning stuff so much because you're kind of just standing on the edge of a cliff, in a Final Fantasy VI style or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, like all of the ways in which you need to think about where poor little Brian is in space at like every moment while attack animations are happening, and like the kinds of things that you normally kind of space out on when you're playing through an RPG that's got a turn-based battle system or whatever. It just does a very good job of forcing you to pay attention in a way that keeps you engaged and interacting, I guess, and thinking about every like normal little action that you take just a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with combat system in good old Quest 64 front to back.
Yeah, I like it would be very satisfying. There was like there's like a boulder attack where it gets thrown at you and you can kind of like run forward and it'll go over your head, or if you're just in the right position, it will. Like there were times where I was like, am I supposed to be able to do this? Because like why the enemy AI isn't always lined up quite right. But and I know we had some moments where we were trying to figure out like, is this a move you can dodge? Like there were some moves we couldn't quite tell, like if it was does it make a difference if I'm running around in a circle like an idiot or not?
Yeah, some of them were just seem, I don't know, too like they took up too much space or were too fast, and you try to dodge whatever you could within the octagonal limits of your space.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was really interesting way to move around the field.
It did lead to some situations where it was like, okay, well, if they do this attack, they're never going to hit me. But if they do this attack, like I'm for sure going to get hit. In some cases, like if they do this attack, I'm definitely going to die. But if they do this attack, like I'm going to wipe the floor with them. So it felt like maybe at times like a little unbalanced, but I really thought like it did a lot in the runtime of the game to kind of keep you sort of engaged with it. As you mentioned, Andrew, like something you could kind of, instead of something you can kind of like keep in the back of your mind. And you also had like, so you've got these elemental spells that Andrew also mentioned, where you basically can level up spells based around earth, wind, fire, water. And I gotta say, Mike, I really appreciated the tip you gave me about the first healing spell you get, which you apparently don't get until level 10. On water, the water track.
I got so far without that.
I don't know what I would have done without that. Like, it seems like it would have been quite, I mean, there are aspects of this that sort of feel grindy, but not really. Like, I think you can somewhat avoid that in this game, but if I didn't have that, I feel like that would have felt like a slog. So Mike, thank you for that tip.
Apparently I should have texted Andrew too. That's on me though.
But that is, I don't know. What do you make, Mike, of these elemental spells? I do think it's cool. Like they have like different sort of, animations that go with them, and they're pretty unique. But it does feel like, yeah, you can kind of sort of paint yourself into a corner, maybe, if you don't level up the right ones.
That's true. And like you said, they, technically you're supposed to be able to dodge most of them when you're playing defense. There's some like, ice knife that are even more homing than the homing missile is. It's just going to hit you. And then that's the way it is, because the enemies aren't dodging. So they have to have some sort of advantages sometimes. They're just sitting there and taking whatever you're giving them. And did either of you guys play any of the Monster Rancher games on PlayStation?
Very little.
I have not, no.
Okay. Well, part of the battle system on there, it's a wild game if you ever get around to it. It's the whole gimmick is you put a CD in the PlayStation and it gives you a monster based on like the data on it.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But the battle system's just kind of like, it's sort of like Quest 64 if it was on like a 2D plane. So instead of moving in all directions, you just move forward and backwards towards your opponent in real time. And Quest actually uses that exact same kind of thing. You just can't see it because it's in the background. So all the bosses have like an in-close attack that's got a specific range for Brian to be in. And that's how they decide what attack they're going to use on you. So there's very specific attacks. Like some bosses are easier at mid-range, some are easier at the long range, and some are easier at the short range, depending on what attacks are most dangerous. Like I'm sure you played Solvaring at the beginning. If you get in close range with Solvaring, the first boss, that earthquake thing absolutely decimates you at that level, no matter what you had done up till that point. But he's a lot easier to dodge the laser at long range, especially if you just pick a direction and go that way over and over. So there is like ways to play around with it, but yeah, it's a cool system. But I do realize that it maybe with the amount of battles that you do in the game that it would wear on some people who didn't play a lot of like Pokemon when they were younger, where there was a random Pokemon every third step, or played Dragon Quest 1 where it was constant random encounters, and like I guess.
I will say, I don't know, maybe that's actually maybe kind of more your area of expertise, because I know you're not like a big RPG person, but you're a big Pokemon person, which
yes,
it's for sure that's an RPG. But did you feel like that we were kind of getting in a lot of battles, or how did it compare to like what you're sort of used to?
Pokemon, early Pokemon especially, does have a lot of random encounters, and I would run away from them a lot to get to the next area, and then if I had to go back and grind, I would do that because I just liked getting to the next spot when I was a kid. But yeah, lots of just stop and start with that. I think here the thing that got us sometimes would be we'd take a few steps, get into an encounter, and because of where we ended up in that battle, we would be like farther away than from where we were going, and like we'd take maybe a couple more steps and wouldn't even get to the point we were before the battle.
Progress. Yeah. That was kind of the only times where I feel like, maybe it was tuned like a little too high. But I think for the most part, especially because it's pretty easy to run away from a lot of battles, like it wasn't that egregious. But I'm sorry, Andrew, you were gonna say something about that.
I was just gonna add that, like, that had me thinking a lot about the space, because like if you'd get into a random battle and then like, because it takes place exactly where you are and it doesn't whisk you away to like, like if we're going to use Final Fantasy VII as an example, that, takes you to a separate like battle screen that's themed like the environment that you're in, but it's not the same physical space that you were standing in when the random encounter hit, right? So like Quest it's all it takes place right where you're standing in the place you already were. So I'd find myself trying to like maneuver Brian to the other side of the ring during combat if I could, so that I would minimize the amount of other random encounters I might trigger trying to walk that same distance after the battle, if that makes sense. I was like, I feel like I'm going to be interrupted less if I try to move while fighting than if I just try to like keep escaping and running forward.
Okay, I like that strategic advancement. Yeah.
Well, part of that was also
good for your agility. So, good on
you. I'm not looking for. Not having the healing spell at the beginning taught me that if I want to grind in Quest 64, I just run in a straight line and just keep fighting stuff till I die, because I'll just teleport back to the inn with 1 HP, having not lost anything as far as I can tell.
Correct.
Yeah, so I was like, because at first I thought I had to do like a dungeon crawler thing, a wizardry style, like you go as far as you can safely-ish and then try and make it back to the town without dying. No, you can just run full steam ahead and eat shit, and you'll just be magically whisked back to the starting point to do it again. So that had me thinking a lot about like, just the way that distance and placement and stuff all kind of interact together with the combat system and the leveling system, and just like the way those things kind of play with the environment a little bit was, I don't know how much of that was necessarily intentional, but I think it ended up working well, and I felt like I had an interesting kind of mechanical relationship with the game world, I guess, as a result.
Yeah, I that aspect of like you do just kind of go back with everything and you can keep going. It did make it so I sort of felt like, oh, this game is actually like fairly, other than like, things we mentioned where you can kind of mess something up and get yourself stuck. I could easily, I almost could see that happening while we were playing through it. Like, oh, I feel like you could screw yourself over, but otherwise I did feel like that aspect did kind of make the game like easier than how I had like thought of other RPGs I've played. And I felt like that, I don't know. I felt like this felt like that's another way when I started thinking about it more like an adventure game, where I was like, yeah, I feel like this would actually make like a great sort of like introduction to this style of game, because it's a little like, in terms of like leveling up and stuff, it's a little bit more forgiving, I would say. So
Quest 64, they're calling it the 3D Mystic Quest.
I like that you said intentional too, Andrew, because it was like all built into the game. Like the reason I brought up Pokemon is, and I don't know if I sent this text message to you, Goo and McKenna, but the roads work the same way as Pokemon. So if you're in the roads, like in the paths, it's a much lower encounter rate. And then you think of like the grass off from the path as like the weeds in Pokemon, where the encounter rate's higher. And that wasn't like explained very well unless you had the manual or had played the game a lot. Like if you didn't know to stick to the path, you would like literally every second step is going to be an encounter. And I know a lot of people were trying to like play the game as the crow flies. I can see the thing, so I'm going to run at it. And that got you, bogged down against a cliff in some grass, where you're just going to like have 4 hellhounds and then 4 more hellhounds and then, like a Marionasty or whatever. And then you don't want to play anymore because you're so far from the road that you're just stuck in a loop. And had the game like maybe tutorialize some of the stuff, the battle system, the encounter rates, how leveling works, like synergies between the elements, which is also a thing that people don't talk about very often. But like once you level, like when you look at the little triangle, like, and you see that, rock is next to fire, like as you level up fire, you get percentages of a point towards your earth element as well.
Oh,
like, so there is all sorts of stuff that was like hyper intentional in the game that just Imagineer put the game out, called it Quest 64 over here. And none of that stuff was really explained until they released their own game, a whole year later, when they brought out Telltale Monsters, and they fixed all. I don't know if you guys looked at the differences, but it's pretty
I've heard
wild.
about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like critical and timed hits, like Mario RPG style, where you could like press the button again when you swing the cane and you could get a double hit.
Okay.
Yeah, like the road signs were legible. In that once you could tell where you're going, as opposed to a bunch of like jibber jabber. They switched the octagon shape to a circle, so you didn't have like the clipping on the points of the octagon.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know. Well, speedrunners use that, but for other things, not for making the game, easier and stuff. And like you could do like a destination marker on the map. Like you could set a point like Skyrim and then follow it, which would probably be pretty helpful. And all sorts of stuff like that. More items for monsters to make the games easier. So they knew what happened when they released it and then fixed it. But of course, we got the first one of the few times we're getting the first version was probably not the coolest, as opposed to getting the last version, which would have all the player feedback and all that stuff. So,
yeah, and ending, things of this nature.
Oh yeah, there's a really long slideshow ending on L-Tail Monsters too. It's like wild. It's like
hell?
80 pages long. You can go on like the cutting room floor and see the whole thing played out.
Yeah, that's exactly where I looked through it.
But yeah.
Okay, I think we gotta try that. That sounds like interesting additions. Like, yeah, adding that kind of, sort of you were talking about like that timed attack stuff. Like, I feel like that would work well in a game like this. So, I would love to play more games that sort of took advantage of something similar. Like, I think there's something there. But you mentioned like the paths. I will say we stayed on the paths pretty much. Kind of for a different reason though, because oftentimes, you warned us about this, Mike.
Breaking rules is why.
I am afraid of authority for sure. But no, like you could, Mike, you warned us, like you can get turned around pretty easily in this, and I think in the first sort of like major combat zone we went to, or the first forest we went to, McKenna, we a couple times were like backtracking to something, and we'd get into a battle off the road, and even though you also warned, or I guess told us, Mike, that when you finish a battle, Brian ends up facing the way you were going when you started. When you're doing that in the middle of a forest off a path, it still gets a little confusing. So after that experience, McKenna, we stuck to the roads as much as we could.
Yeah, and made use of the compass.
We did. We used the compass in this game. Quite useful.
Constantly, yeah.
I think at one point, in one of the caves, you ran away from a battle, and that just has you, like, you'll be going in the direction where you ran out of the octagon, and we got turned around there.
That really got me, because for a lot of the beginning of the game, I was typically not running away from battles. Like, because like you mentioned, like I didn't think they were overly frequent, and I always viewed it as like, oh, this is a good chance to level up. But then, as the game went on, especially going through some of these, there's some really long cave areas, I felt like, where you are just kind of doing that over and over. I was like, all right, unless these guys are in my way, I'm going to run away from them. And then one of those times, it just like totally tripped me up what direction I was going. And I, turned myself around. So that's kind of frustrating a little bit, but I think it's nice the game at least considered that in the facing Brian the right way. So.
Yeah, just not a ton of visual landmarks in a lot of the environments. There's not a lot of things to kind of like orient on and catch your eye. I know this is something that the Computer Lab Hijinks video touched on as well, but like a lot of the, particularly the towns, but a lot of the environments in this game look very much like they were designed to be looked at from a top-down perspective, like you would see in a Pokemon style, like 8-bit, 16-bit RPG, as opposed to having the camera down in 3D space, following you around and moving around and struggling to navigate the objects and stuff.
Do you think that's because they were thinking of it that way, or was it just because it's like that was kind of more common way to set up towns and stuff in RPGs at the time?
I have no idea. It feels like maybe that was a relic of an earlier version of the game, in the way that GoldenEye being a Virtua Cop type thing at some point. But I have no idea if that's actually true, if it's vestigial of a different kind of vision of this game as an RPG, or if it's just or if the towns are just really badly laid out. I don't know. But it is it's very strange. I didn't really have a lot of trouble necessarily getting turned around in this game, because I knew going in about the thing where after battle the camera will swing around and Brian will do his little happy dance and face the right direction and all that. But between that and the compass, it was usually okay. But yeah, it's like visually very, very difficult to center and orient yourself in the environment.
Yeah. for me, the towns were not as bad because I feel like at least like even though a lot of the buildings kind of look, they look similar, like there was something there. Whereas like, yeah, like cave wall, we started counting like bridges that we'd go over in caves. Like, okay, this is where we go over 2 bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the 3 bridge spot. Cause that was like, okay, if I see 3 bridges, I'm going the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a time you go back in that bridge room in the blue caves and you're up on a higher bridge looking down. It's like, okay, I didn't go backwards earlier then. That's good.
And a lot of what you guys are talking about, yeah, it's rough. And not having... So I had the strategy guide when I was younger too. And so I remember the game way differently because I had the strategy guide. I memorized the maps, sitting in bed when I wasn't playing. So like it didn't affect me as much. So then, the birth of the account and all the stuff and all the things because honestly, there was like a 10-year period where I didn't like use the internet for like anything other than like going on Facebook. So I had like no idea the complaints that people had about this game. I'm like, nah, it's Quest 64, dude. Like, it's awesome. Like, so one of the first things I did when I started the account was like, well, there's got to be a scan of the strategy guide. Like, I've got like 3 copies of the strategy guide in the room over there. Like we got one right here.
There we go.
Yeah. I'm like, you just go online and use the guide. There wasn't a copy of it scanned, so I tore one apart page by page and used my Epson desktop scanner to sit and scan it into archive.org so I could tell people like, hey, go look at these maps. And
that's what game preservation actually looks like, by the way, folks at home. Like, sincerely.
It's destroying your $15 oldest copy of the guide and then scanning it in. So I've actually started doing that more now because none of the Quest stuff is anywhere. So like the Quest manuals for all of because there's 2 Game Boy games as well. Mm-hmm. And so I've scanned those in and, but yeah, like not having that reference point for, other, like you said, looking top down at a Final Fantasy 2 map, you're like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking top down at Quest 64 map also makes sense, but then being in it didn't. And I'm sure they figured that out a couple times because of my affinity for the strategy guide, I got not close, but like pen pal status with James Ratkos and Elizabeth Hollinger, specifically James, but they're the authors of the strategy guide. And
cool.
Told we got, me and a friend and I like sent them a whole list of questions. They politely answered all of them. And one of the things was how many times did the games change? We can tell like stuff was cut out. And he's like, James said specifically, he's like, from the point where we started writing the guide, there was no less than like 22 revisions where they had to delete their whole save and start the thing from scratch again. And eventually, so there is some spelling errors in the guide. Like, well, you see it on the map too, like Holy Plan instead of Holy Plain. And I think they were just over it at the end. He's like, I didn't even want to like look at Quest at the end with how many times we had rewrote the guide for things that were planned in the game, like having party members because there are party members in the original build of the game. And like all that stuff was in there at some point, and they're like, all right, no, cut it back. And then you're left with, the first fully 3D, like to scale RPG that I don't know how many RPGs looked. I don't have a huge backlog before Quest, but like how many games in 96, 97, 98 did you play like the trees were the right size and the mountains were the right size and Brian was smaller than the Cloud was as big as the airship in Final Fantasy VII still when you went to the overworld. I don't think there was a lot of trailblazing in this genre, and the Nintendo 64 was probably not the place to be doing it. So that combination of all those things made a pretty weird game.
Yeah. I what it feels like, and I don't know the story, but from what you said and like other sources seem to say, like, yeah, they didn't get to do all they wanted to do. And it feels like it, because of that, because it is like this like 3D world where you're running around and like you are just in the world, like like we mentioned, there's not a lot of games at that time where you're really doing that in an interconnected world, and I wonder, like, it must have just taken them a long time to, like, that was probably a taller task than it seems like at the time to like actually come up with this, because I don't know, there's less to maybe go off of or something. I don't know. I don't know a ton about, like, we've played a couple games that I would describe as like fully 3D world at the time, but I don't know. This seemed hard to pull off, I would imagine.
Yeah, even if you had played Mario, or you guys played Goemon as well, which is a great game.
Mm-hmm. I love that game. Yeah,
yeah, it's sick. It looks the same, but it's not an RPG. You know, like it's got RPG stuff, but to build, you know, a whole turn-based fighting engine on top of Goemon would have made that game weird as hell. Like like this, you know?
Implementing that in the world, is tough too. Goemon's an example of, like, I love that game, but you know, if you compare like the quote unquote dungeons or like the levels of that to like an Ocarina of Time, like the layouts and stuff of that do feel a little bit more like previous generation, like just kind of like there's different floors, but it's kind of like just grids of rooms connected. And I feel like that's probably how Ocarina of Time is in a lot of cases, but it does a good job of sort of tricking you and like making you like feel like these places are more than just kind of like square rooms that you're going in, and like, oh, I got to find the key and bring it to the door. Like there's other like interesting stuff where you kind of play around with the architecture of those. But that just like Final Fantasy VII, like that influence wasn't like there to have its impact fully yet. So a lot of that lack of stuff that we've talked about in some of those settings, it does give the game like kind of unique vibes, I will say. It's pretty cool. I feel like, McKenna, this is probably the highlight of our like playthrough together, was just like checking out the different areas. Obviously you've got kind of like repeat forest and caves that are similar looking, but like I feel like some of the towns and other areas felt kind of neat.
This in Pokemon, like one of my favorite things to do is when I get to a new town, just like go in all the buildings and explore and talk to everyone, and that's what I wanted to do as soon as we got to a new town in Quest 64. Some of them were most of them were nice to look at.
Yeah, they had like something unique about like the way the town looked.
Yeah. I like the watery town.
There's like that one room that's like water walls.
Yeah, the water walls.
Yeah.
I made sure we went in every single room of every single building. Because
and all of them were empty, like Shenmue 2.
Maybe there. I was like, the one room that we don't go in is going to be the room that has a thing.
Yeah, that was one part where I was like, that part where you're talking about like going to all the places and talking to all the people, like that aspect wasn't as satisfying. Like you wouldn't run into as many people as you would hope, and a lot of them would just be saying like, that damn thief. Bandit. You know, like, okay, there's a guy I gotta go kill. Yep. Like occasionally someone would drop a bomb that was like kind of cool, but the villagers, the towns, maybe not as exciting, but the look itself is quite nice. And like some of those big open areas I think have kind of neat vibes. Andrew, you've referenced that computer lab hijinks video. They sort of talk about that a little bit in that video as well, and I think it's really well put, especially like as you get later in the game and like things start to get a little bit weird. I would say,
you start finding towns that have been just like completely blasted and incinerated, or like the last one, Branagh just lives in like abject 24/7 darkness, like Mordor or whatever, and it's just very like, they had art direction ideas here to communicate, all kinds of like thematic narrative what's what I'm looking for? I had a specific weird noun in mind, but it doesn't matter. Affordances. There we go. Yeah, it's they're doing stuff for sure. And I think the kind of empty dead mall thing that the game has going on up until the end makes that end a lot spookier and weirder. Once you're in like spooky Shadow Realm Melroad at the end, it's like awkward and creepy for entirely different reasons than normal like daylight Melroad was. And like it's kind of again, it's like I don't know how much of that is kind of an accidental knock-on effect of the kind of like very clear ways in which the game was not, like I keep saying unfinished or not finished or whatever, and like that's not a novel take. Obviously, it's a thing that a lot of people have talked about over the years. The game feels like you can see all of the spots where it's like, oh, this feels like placeholder, or like where they would have put something else here, or like this, just like parts of the game that are not brushed up to what they seem like they were trying to do, I guess, if that makes sense. It's like there are a lot of little things as you play through it that like you can feel you can see the walls that didn't get painted,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that kind of ends up again, I don't know what the idealized version of this game would have looked like initially. But the version of it that shipped, at least in North America, and the one that I played as an experience that I can speak to, it's a lot of the kind of weird, hauntingly empty ambience of it ends up making the like darker spin on that stuff towards the end, I think, much more effective in a weird way. Or at least contributes to it being very effective. I shouldn't say much more effective than it would have been otherwise, because like they could have maybe supported that stuff super successfully. I don't know. But in terms of eating the meal on the plate as it is, I think that stuff ended up making the kind of like that back run of the game where things suddenly start kind of like happening for the first time. Really, really effective, because like that's also where there's a lot of really, really weird prosaic writing. A lot of the like dialogue is like really flowery and I don't know, almost like effervescent, but like in a very like depressed, almost Kierkegaardian kind of way. It's very existential in the end, and a lot of that I think fits very well with everything that they've got going on artistically, and that kind of weird, like, I know everyone likes to say the word vaporwave about that end area with the checkerboard floors and all of the like just kind of floating pillars in space, and it does kind of look like a something Vectroid would use for artwork. But what were we talking about?
No, man, you killed it.
It kind of transfers over, actually, Mike, into your account, where it's like the game has this like two sides to it, where like at times like it is like, it's like, oh, okay, this game is called Quest 64 and I'm Brian, and everyone's just like, get the orbs, and it's right, it's like, oh, this is so like straightforward, it's almost comical. But then it'll shift and it'll be like, you start thinking about your entire life, and you're looking at the vaporwave skies and you're like, what's going on? And there's like a weird melancholy to the game. And I don't know, I feel like that comes across in like, if it suits the vibe of like the type of like kind of memes and stuff that you do, where it's like walking that line between like the surreal and like silly a little bit at the same time. Like I don't know. I think does that inspire you at all when you're thinking of these things, or is it just like, I'm just shitposting?
I mean, hell yeah, it does, but it's not that deep, I guess, is the best way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like forget when a game is like called Quest 64 and the dude's name is Brian, that like a Japanese company made this game. Like like every JRPG ends this way. Like it's a tale of two cities. You start out rescuing a cat and then you're fighting God at the end. Like that's like classic JRPG stuff is. And like Quest 64 ABC did the same thing. You just weren't expecting it because you were walking around in it. And like Andrew said, it's got as the kids would say, I guess it's got like a laminal backrooms vibe when you get to the end, and they just stick you in where you would be fighting God, and it's like, well, go get him, partner.
Yep.
But yeah, that of course, being able to make one meme where it's lush forest backgrounds and Brian looking inspired, and then another meme where you're on blue and yellow roads that go to nowhere. It's great having all that source material to make things with. I don't think I'm like Drill or anything. I just make shitty images that will get people's attention, and then I can tell them to go play the Game Boy Color version that's got all the stuff they're asking for. But
if you get too deep about it, it's annoying. And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you in that realm.
No.
All, but
it's like when people ask me why I do what I do, and it's like, well, I don't really have a reason. I don't monetize anything I'm doing. I just needed something to do, and now this is where I'm doing it. So congratulations for living in the era of me not having any hobbies, I guess is the best.
Born too late to explore the world, born too early to explore the stars, born just in time to shit post about Quest 64.
Just in time to explore Keltland.
That's
right. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's got a lot of very overtly Celtic stuff, not just imagery and names, but he's called Brian. And that sounds very silly on its face, but everyone else you meet, Shannon, Martha, every other name is very cartoonishly old-timey Irish.
Yeah, that's what they were going for. And they, once again, if you don't know that coming in, it's why do they all have normal names? He's a 12-year-old kid in Scotland, Ireland, where what do you want him to be called? Cloud or Squall? Yeah, no, dude, it's a Brian. He's just a little kid with a whole gay hair. Let him be, man.
He's kind of an everyman sort of character. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out about some of those, some of the liminal spaces or whatever, you have those areas where it's you're looking out over a sea or a big field. And this game actually, it does have a day-night cycle, which also is crazy. It's not there were games with that before, but we certainly haven't played one, I don't think, in our run through, McKenna.
No,
but that was some of our best parts. When we'd end a session, we'd be streaming the game, we'd end a session and we find a
just
nice
look up at the sky.
It's good skyboxes.
We liked watching the sunset.
Yeah, it was very romantic. Yeah.
A lot of good deep purples and oranges in those sunsets. The game really between that and that rainbow cave where Chappie lives, that's what it's called.
Chappie, yeah.
There's just so much really, really excellent use of the ridiculously colorful nature of the way the N64 can make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's everything has that Rainbow Road kind of thing to it, and I don't know what's happening there technically, but there's something very N64 about how ridiculously colorful this game is.
Yeah, it's got super N64 colors. I think a lot of the character models and stuff like that have that low poly charm to them. It's a very N64 ass game, essentially.
A lot of the enemies looked really cool. There's a huge variety of enemies, even with some of them are reskin. There's still a ton of them, and I think all of them look really cool.
I like the Frog Knight.
Yeah,
that's my favorite guy. Who's your guy?
There was a woman with colorful wings. That was two different. That was one that I reskinned. I really like both of those. Rocky.
Oh, we loved Rocky. Yeah,
who was just basic, little rock guy, but one of our favorites.
Who's your kind of favorite to use it, make jokes out of? Is there one that comes to mind?
I do use Frog Knight a lot. I use Werecat and Werehair. Big Mouth, the alligator thing, I use in a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
Big Mouth, his friend. He's the speedrunning community is ridiculous for this game, by the way. If you guys ever, you don't have to speedrun the game, but like Bing Chan and his wife, he's like the original world record holder. They make like all sorts of Quest 64 stuff, and they do like t-shirts and socks and stuff like that. That's just awesome.
Oh, sick.
But like, and they're big Big Mouth fans, so I got an affection for Big Mouth through being part of that community for a long time before I told them I was lurking in their Discord for like 2 years, and they had no idea. And, but yeah, like the enemies are great. The Wyvern is real cool, just because it like up till that point everything is like your size, and then all of a sudden there's this like dragon looking thing that's the whole screen and whipping rocks at you, and you're like, oh, well, I'm dead now. And then you find out it's not so bad to beat it. It's just imposing, you know. But yeah, they really went out of their way to do stuff like make the skyboxes and the day-night cycle look great. And you talked about the NPCs. There's no like reused NPC model. Every NPC in the game is a different model with a different name. Like
I didn't even notice that. That's insane.
Not a single one is reused. They bothered to model all of those, but couldn't finish like the story of the game. They're like, no, this is more important at this point. You know, we got to get these NPCs in here. And so there was give and take for the game. But yeah, like you said, the modeling it's N64 ass game, like primary colors, sharp lines, and like no gray, no like black. It's just it's like a stained glass window in the sun all the time. So
that's why you love it.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of that whole thing too, we can't not mention the soundtrack. I actually think this game has like kind of a pleasant soundtrack. Like you were just today, it's been like a month since we finished it, and we're still like humming some of the songs for it. I think it's a pretty soundtrack. I saw it was done by Masamichi Amano. Mike, are you familiar with a lot of their work?
I am familiar with his work.
What are some other soundtracks that you would recommend?
So I don't know if you guys are big Evangelion fans, but he did the music for the like 30+1 movies, so he was incorporating like his Quest 64-ness and all of that. He did music for Berserk too.
Oh wow. Okay.
He did the soundtrack for Onimusha 3. And then he was also in some Quentin Tarantino films, and some of those soundtracks he was in I don't remember which one. One of the more recent ones. But like he's got like full orchestra arrangements, like he's been all over the place, doing video games, and yeah, this music is awesome. Like,
looks like this is his first game credit.
I think it was his first video game credit, but he did, depending on what you call a game or a click through, for the R-rated or possibly M-rated audience, he also did the soundtrack for, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's Uratsu Kadaji. It was from 1987. It was kind of the anime, and then following that, there was a bunch of like flash animation games from it. But it's the anime that was credited with popularizing tentacle porn. He was also the composer for that. So,
all right,
is the GOAT. Got a lot of
he's the man.
You do Infinite Space on DS, which is fantastic. That game rocks.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, what'd you think of the soundtrack, Andrew?
Generally, I liked it quite a bit, but the main battle theme is those first like 5 seconds are ripped straight out of Final Fantasy VII note for note in a way that is very, very funny and never stopped catching me off guard. Every single time.
You're like, oh, shit. Okay.
You didn't even okay, yeah, that's just actionably the same riff. Okay.
I wish that like I spoke Japanese and read Japanese better, because I know that he did his work like a year or two before the game came out. Like he wasn't at the end. Like, so it was probably during Final Fantasy VII development. And I know a ton of those Japanese composers were using surnames and were collaborating and doing things together so they could get extra work, so they weren't like locked down into one project. And I have tried this a few times, but it's like trying to find the guy who sings the Buck Bumble song. Like I just cannot get together. But I guarantee that he knew or had friends that were working at Square, because Imagineer and Square are pretty close geographically as well. And still, I guarantee there was some overlap. I guarantee there was some like play back and forth. And this is just kind of what happened from that. They both had similar, one of them came up with it. Obviously Final Fantasy VII came out first, so that gets the credit for being like, but yeah, they are the first 5 seconds are dead on to each other. But
then the rest of it goes off in a different direction and gets significantly less, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer with it than Uematsu tends to. But still, every single time I'm just like, man, that's just okay.
I guess the town theme always comes to my mind. You do kind of hear it a lot, but I actually do think you could throw that on a chill Nintendo 64 playlist, and it's a relaxing tune. Is there any other songs that you can think of that were nice? Maybe some like the weird areas.
There were like a couple, not weird areas, but there were a couple tracks I know that had like bells in them.
Oh, yeah.
So it like almost had like the rest of the song didn't have a wintry feel, but just like the bells just automatically give something like, oh, it's snowing.
Not really ever happening in this, I don't think. You go to a desert.
Oh yeah, you go to a desert.
Quite different, but
yes.
But I think all around it, I think most aspects of the vibes of this game, it is this, it's this kind of like weird balance of like, oh, this is like really beautiful, and like, oh yeah, this isn't maybe fully baked. Just in general, like how the game starts, like when you just kind of start the game, like obviously on the title screen, you've got like sort of a rundown of the world and the characters and some paragraphs, but then you hit start on the game and you're just there like talking to a guy, and he's like, all right, have a good one, and that like really sets the tone for like the game, like that. People talk a lot about like is it like the vertical slice, like how some games have that opening where you get a taste of like all what the game has to offer, and I feel like the beginning of this game, like
publishers.
What's that?
That's how you pitch to publishers.
Yeah.
Right. This game's vertical slice is like that back and forth where you're like, wait, let's have, oh, okay. Sweet. We're going. Oh, this looks nice. And then you're kind of in the beginning area going into a bunch of doors, talking to no one. And it's like, what's going on? But then you step outside and you see the beautiful sky and the cute little town and the music's playing. It's like, it's just this fun, like, you're like, okay, this is what the game has in store for us. And all the way up until the end where we talked about that final vaporwave area. It also has this vibe of like, oh, here's a good way we can kind of like create a final area where we can sort of reuse assets from the game and make it a little weird. And I can definitely see that maybe too as like a cost and time saving thing. But it also has a nice effect in the story. But I feel like
it works thematically as well too.
Yeah. So I'm not even necessarily knocking it for that, but I feel like you can see throughout the game, like you mentioned, Andrew, where like maybe they didn't finish they didn't finish putting in the walls here or whatever, like metaphorically speaking, but that's not actually, maybe this is more of a knock against the N64, but that's not been too uncommon in a lot of games that we've played. Like not all of them, but like there's a handful of them where it's like, oh, maybe they probably had to spend a lot more time just getting this game, like coming up with this 3D world, even. And I feel like it's even harder in this game because they had to make it like this big expansive world compared to like, I don't know. We played like a lot of weird like racing games that probably just struggled with making a 3D racing game, but that's nothing compared to an RPG, I would feel like, in terms of the world.
It feels like they were making a much bigger game with a lot more moving parts to it, and then very suddenly realized that time and money were running out much sooner than expected.
Yeah.
And so they had to like adjust what minimum viable product is for that project, and like bring scope way, way, way down, and just like, okay, just finish polishing off what you already have and get it out the door, kind of thing, is kind of how it feels. Like you can kind of a lot of games are, just about all games are conversation between player and designer as you play it, but like you can feel an authorial hand a lot of the time, even if it's a collective one, especially with a single player narrative game like this. That hand is just off the wheel through large parts of this game, I think, if I can keep using abstracted metaphors. Like it feels like there's just no one driving this ship sometimes, but you just kind of have to navigate your way from point A to point B anyway. Like I remember when I first got to the boat, for example, the ship that you travel on, like my whole path to that place was like, I feel like I'm playing a weird like liminal space within this very liminal game where like I feel like I'm walking through a space no one made. That just kind of was like enough of the systems were kind of put together that like it'll get you there from beginning to end. You'll make it to that spot, and like all of the space in between will be covered by a open area to walk, Hyrule Field style, except the random encounters and stuff will keep triggering, and like the video game will keep happening. You can trust that it will still maintain the course. But like, yeah, it definitely felt like I was just driving blind there for a while. It's just very strange, lonesome experience playing this game.
Yeah, and you were not off base. That is a lot of what happened. You start with a ton of ideas. You start with a party system and a day-night cycle and a combat system that nobody has seen before. And then you make the game, and it's okay, but it needs to be cooked more. And you're like, oh, well, maybe in another year it'll be done. And then Nintendo announces that Ocarina of Time is coming out at the end of 1998. And Imagineer's like, well, we're going to go from selling like some copies to 0 copies if we do not get it out before Ocarina. And they did. Like, it sold 500,000 copies. So it did well for a Nintendo 64 game, but it would not have sold any copies had it come out, the beginning of 99. Nobody would have played it.
No. Even actually, you mentioned real quick, I would mention with the boat thing, that's even weird too, because you're traveling through this world and you do this thing, you get the boat going, and then like there's no like cut scenes or anything like that. And so a lot of times, that might for some people make the narrative weird or something, or like maybe, it doesn't feel as dramatic, but it also functionally times you'd be like, all right, we're driving the boat, and then just like you're somewhere else, and the game, I mean, obviously you are, but the game doesn't really make you feel like, it just feels like you didn't drive a boat there. Like you just like went through a portal or something, and now you're in a different place.
You walk down below decks and save, and then walk back up, and you're in a completely different like environment with a different map in the start screen, and everything's changed. And it's like, I didn't know we were going anywhere, man. I was just exploring this weird little boat I found, but okay.
Now the wind's not going in the right direction, so you can't go back.
Get the wind gem or whatever, and gotta go play Windjammers.
But overall, I think the game, there's definitely a lot of weird things, but I think it was still like, it was very fun, very, very interesting to actually go back and play. Like we talked about, I really enjoyed the combat. It was fun to, figure out like cool ways you could, I don't know, like stand in the middle of a bunch of enemies and use ice wall and freeze them all. Like there's fun like little strategies.
Rolling rock, trying to aim that.
Or like we talked about how the bosses, like depending on the distance or the enemies in general, that created like fun puzzles sometimes of trying to figure out the optimal place to stand. So like it was engaging enough. I don't know. I kind of really enjoyed my experience with it, even recognizing its flaws. And I feel like even like you read reviews from the time, and I feel like a lot of them were fairly like, even though some were mixed, like I think there were a lot of people who kind of recognized like what was cool about some of this game. And like you mentioned, Mike, it was successful enough that it got two sequels, right?
Sort of. One was just Mr. Do with
I was gonna say it's a Mr. Do clone.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Rocks.
It is cool, but it's Mr. That's dependent on whether you like Mr. Do or not. So it's
and you do.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Okay, so there's one. They're Game Boy games, right? There were no more like
Game Boy Color
console games, but I don't know. It's got a lot of the game. There's a lot of like charm, and I'm also very like into the fact that I don't know what the story is, but the fact that they themselves just published it in Japan and they cleaned a couple things, or they added some stuff to it and got to like kind of polish a couple of things here and there. Like it feels like they sort of believed in the game somewhat to like.
Konami put it out over there? Or am I making things up?
That was Europe.
Konami in Europe,
Konami
and Imagineer
okay.
did it themselves in Japan. So
okay, that explains why they were able to go back and fix a lot of that there. Okay,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot charm to that as well on top of the game itself. So,
and like Andrew alluded to earlier, like perception did like mean something to the legacy of this game. Like, so we have the Quest 64 perception in the Americas here, and you remember like Pro Jared dumping on it and like Game Pro EGM saying like meh, but like when it was released in Europe as Holy Magic Century, like the official Nintendo magazine there gave it an 84, and like Q64, their big Nintendo 64 magazine, gave it an 80. So just calling it something different and not calling it Quest 64 like raised the average score like 30 points, like on a 100-point scale. Like, so just little things like that would have been a big, but you know, that's not here. We're Americans. So like Quest 64, and that's the way it is. I've been fighting real hard to try to get those scores included on Metacritic, but I don't know how, like what channels I have to go through, because me just sending them like magazine scans, like, hey, look at all these scores that are not included in this game's legacy, and they're like, I don't get responses to things like that.
I don't think Metacritic includes scores from any sources anyone has heard of anymore.
Yeah. Well, this actually, the ones on Wikipedia are all from Game Rankings, which doesn't exist anymore either. That's Metacritic just like absorbed Game Rankings. So I can't even fix that.
Yeah, that's wild. I do remember looking at the, I didn't like actually read them, but did a quick kind of like scan of a lot of review like scores and aggregate and stuff at the time. And it looks like it was generally pretty positive. Doesn't seem like it was really dunked on a lot. And I know the game was like, again, having known it as the like butt of a bunch of jokes growing up, it kind of just like, it was just that it was so generic and so nothing that it felt like kind of a stand-in for all of the kind of unfulfilled potentials, I guess, of the N64 like library, in terms of like just like genre stuff that it did not serve for various markets. And so like when you look at all of the really, really heavy RPG presence on the PlayStation and even the Saturn, as much as that's not a big deal in, you know, the United States and North America in general, like it's just not something that was represented very well on the N64. And so like when the biggest example of this genre that really helped to define a lot of the medium and its place in culture throughout the decade, when you're kind of like biggest example of that in your library is called Quest 64 and is what this game is, like that's kind of the only way that it ends up kind of living in collective cultural memory, I guess. So I understand how that happens, but again, sorry, I feel like I'm starting to like almost do a wrap up, but like it's just like there's something. What in the hell were we talking about? I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, no, we can definitely go into the wrap up. Like I feel like you said it really well. Like I feel it's just one of those things where it's like there's so many tiny things that led to shaping the perception of the game, and I don't know. I guess that makes me start to actually really second guess everything I know about gaming history, because sometimes when I talk to someone, it's like just a totally, you know, like I've talked to, like I mentioned, some of my good friends who, it's like Final Fantasy growing up was always their shit. You know, their SNES like that was their number one thing, or Chrono Trigger. Like if I mention this game to them, they're like, "That's the biggest piece of shit ever," and I'm like,
right.
And I all I could ever say, because they knew I was doing this podcast, was like, well, I don't know, I've never played it, but we'll see someday. And I don't know. Now I dread having to be like, it's not that bad, guy, and like face his wrath of like having that disappointment. Which I feel like kind of like what you said, Andrew. It's more to the freaking N64 is more to blame.
Yeah, mostly. Like, that's the thing. I never got never do a podcast about it. I never got the like impression that this game was widely hated so much as just like panned and disregarded. Like it's not a thing that like I see a lot of venom for necessarily. I don't know if Mike, if you've encountered maybe harder pushback due to your just like public presence for the legacy of this video game, but I haven't encountered a lot of people that like actively dislike it. It's more that it's just kind of like very easy to just kind of
scoff at,
sweep off the table and disregard entirely and joke at, which like I don't think that's necessarily unfounded, but now that I can happily say that I've played Quest 64 to completion, I think that if you're weird and have the right like sicko genes and Kusoge antibodies, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff to be found in this game that's like oddly fascinating and compelling in a lot of ways. And that's not just because it's kind of held together with broken dreams and duct tape. It's also just like it is doing its own cool stuff on its own merits, mixed in with all of the weird stuff that's like kind of half-baked or doesn't necessarily work the way that you would want it to. And yeah, it's not going to stand up next to like any Square RPG of its era in terms of presentation, or really even any of the big like cartridge-based RPGs before it necessarily. Like it's not punching that high with the dramatics and the theatrics necessarily, again, until you get to the end when it really starts redlining the engine from the moment you like figure out who this Shannon person actually is until the final boss fight there, that last couple hours. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fascinatingly odd video game that there are a lot of different things that you can kind of draw parallels to since. Like I'm thinking about this because it arrived in the mail yesterday, but like it's kind of the soundtrack CD he did. I mean, but it's kind of a Ball and Wonderworld of its day a little bit to some degree, where it's like it's not bad. It's just not what they set out to make necessarily, and as a result, it's a weird mishmash jumble of things that really do and really don't work, and a lot of things that really just kind of aren't anything, if that makes sense. Like there's just a lot of unmade decisions, I think, in this game that like, yeah, again, if it had another 6 months in the oven, we'd be having a very different conversation. But also, like you said, Mike, Ocarina being on the horizon means that's not an option.
Yeah, that was something I was more curious. Like that's what made all these games. I always have that more like just curiosity about them. Like what's the deal and like what's the context? And so while I don't necessarily want to discount my friend who was like has this opinion formed on this game that they haven't interacted with for 30 years or whatever, but I was more interested in like, well, what was really going on? I like. Yeah. It's fine. Your preteen self like fucking hated this game or whatever, but like what, like that's, I don't know. I kind of been doing that with myself at the time with a lot of this stuff. Like, well, I was 8 and I liked Mario because wahoo, but like what's the, what were they really cooking up on the N64? And this is a really interesting game to kind of go through it, see what was going on.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
And I got what I wanted out of this transaction because now 3 more people that I know have a first-hand account of the game. If you take 10 years off from the internet and you don't absorb any of that stuff, and you didn't live through the first 10 years of Twitter, then like none of that means anything. It's just a game I played when I was 15, and then a game I played again a few times between like 28 and however old I am now. So it's nice to drag a couple more people down into the miasma and like look, this is just a game. It's not like it's not some like mythical creature that's in the worst games of all time library. It's just the first RPG that took some steps and made some missteps, and it's just a game, dude. Like, it's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like everything from that era that wasn't Ocarina or Mario 64. It's just a game that some people liked and some people who are much louder did not. So.
Yeah, we've been doing little rankings of all the games as we go on our Patreon, and our average score, like if you take all the games we've done, our average score is for the N64 library is 3.5. So it's like
it's above the middle.
Solid 3.5 there.
This is fits alongside a lot of the library. Maybe a little more interesting in a lot of regards. So, McKenna, as someone who any final thoughts on this game? As someone who didn't have that break but didn't play it back in the day, what do you think? Quest 64.
There's like one more thing I wanted to mention, which is the lack of currency.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Which made for kind of a little bit of resource management. We had the health spell, but I imagine if you did not get that and you're relying on the items to restore your health, that could make things difficult, because once you use them...
It could!
Yeah.
It did!
Yeah. There are NPCs that will give you an item if you're out of them.
They only give you one.
But you can't go above that. And yeah, once you've found all the items that are in chests, they're just gone.
Yeah, there was a couple times where I got like stressed out because I thought we were gonna run out, and it was gonna get like grindy. And luckily, we usually
buy a Game Shark. We
already got one at least, so we're ready to go on that regard. Which I did consider, like, we might have to take matters into our own hands, but we were able to avoid that mostly. But there was a couple close calls where it was like, I don't know. Especially when we got to the end, I was like, uh-oh, is this going to be a problem?
We ended up having a lot at the end.
Yeah, because we got scared about it.
Yeah.
So.
Save them all up. That's classic RPG behavior.
And if you had the strategy guide, you would know that Big Mouth and Werehair drop bread, so you just go and farm some Big Mouths and some Werehairs and get some extra bread. But you didn't have the strategy guide, and I was trying not to. I was lurking in a lot of you guys' streams, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell them anything else. They're having too much fun. Why would I interfere with this? I'm just going to sit back and watch this, pop it up on the TV, and watch you guys play. It was a good time for me. Specifically me, though. Nobody else, probably.
Just sitting at home, steepling your fingers like Gendo Ikari, just like, yes.
Yes, we definitely had fun. I only got mad. Like I said, I think I was preemptively mad about something I didn't have to deal with. So it was it was good. It was good all around. Good game.
The sound glitch moments were fun, too. Fun to share those with the internet. Where the music and the sound, like, touched each other in a weird way, and then that was the end of it for you.
It happened in the same place twice, and this was just on the cartridge we had, and I just assumed maybe the cartridge it was like dirty or
just
something.
One pin had corrosion on it or something. Yeah,
but I just switched to the EverDrive, and I was like, whatever, I don't care, as long as I can play it. And I posted the clips, and some people were trying to like diagnose what was going on and trying to help me, and I'm like, no, I don't care. It's fine. I don't care.
This made a great clip. Thank you, Quest 64.
The mystery. The magic. The game. Quest 64. The new adventure RPG for Nintendo 64. Ooh. Get in or get out.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.
It was a pleasure having you both on and talking about this game. I've been anticipating it for a while. Our next game we have coming up is Virtual Chess 64.
Oh, hell yeah.
Apparently came out the same day as Quest 64. So we're
big day.
What a day. Yeah, you got your RPG heads, your chess heads. What more do you want? So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Do you guys have any experience with that game? Has any of you three touched that game?
We've dabbled in it already. So
you think Quest 64 is weird? Like Virtual Chess 64 is something.
We're learning so much.
No, I'm not learning. I'm just gonna let everyone know I'm coming into this episode having read the tutorials and learned nothing. So I do know how to play chess, but not well. But
that's the cold hard ground before I learned me a damn thing about Virtual Chess 64.
Look, I'm not proud. Okay. Okay. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. What would you like to promote?
I would like to promote the original Xbox games Nightcaster and Nightcaster 2 Equinox. Humble Mud has a good video about this. They are uncomfortably similar to Quest 64 in a lot of extremely specific ways, despite being action RPGs, and probably worse than Quest 64 in a lot, like on the whole. They're not good, but you should go play them. Anyway, that's other than that, no. I don't know, man. Elmore's Not Zone on Blue Sky. I swear to God, this gigantic YouTube video I've been talking about for over 2 years is dropping any day now. I am waiting for one clip from a guest, and then I can publish this thing. So Mythic Resonance on YouTube if you want to see me absolutely melt my brain for you good people at home.
Well, look, we're recording this way ahead of time, so if it's not out by then, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said that like a year ago too, so that's fine. These things happen.
No. I'm really pumped for it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Thank you, Andrew, for coming back on the show. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Mike, for blessing my soul with this beautiful gift. I'll treasure it for the rest of my days.
100% my pleasure.
And thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to finally talk to you about this game. Thanks for giving us that Quest 64 blessing that you get to do whatever a podcast is talking about this game. Thank you so much. Would you want to promote anything as well? Of course, the account, but
I do. No, I would never promote that, and I don't do anything else. So a lot of
United States Postal Service.
Yep, the United States Postal Service. Please, buy stamps. That's the only way I am going to be able to retire sometime. Don't buy stamps off Facebook Marketplace, like the 100 forever stamps, because those are all fake, and that doesn't pay me at all. There's a whole underground market of fake stamps that is crippling the USPS that we can't control. It's not really crippling us, but it does suck. So so don't buy stamps off Marketplace. Thank you.
The idea of buying stamps at not a post office. That's wild.
Yeah. Who does that, right? Old people. That's who. They vote Republican and they buy fake stamps. That's what they do.
Same thing.
Well, we buy
Ryan
stamps.
would never do either of those things.
Yeah.
Sorry, last thought on Quest 64. He has the most adorable running animation. It's so good. It's so cute. I love this little guy.
His little
snappies. It's so good.
How could we not mention that? Oh, sorry, Brian.
I just promote guys like you. I'm the only reason I still do internet stuff now that I'm all wrapped up in this is because these podcasts are cool, and this is what I listen to while I work. So without you guys doing the real hard stuff, being podcasters, I wouldn't have stuff to do. So thank you
the real
for
hard
having
work
me.
Podcasting.
It's right up there with stay-at-home mom and oil rig operating as the absolute
it's
least
number
desirable
2
job.
in that, I think.
Yep. Jobs that nobody wants. Yep.
Well, thank you. You have been very supportive of our show this whole time. So thank you so much. We buy stamps all the time also.
I appreciate
and we just renewed our P.O. box for another year. So cha-ching. I don't know if our money makes its way over there, but
Yep, that's us too. Yep.
We often buy stamps because we often are sending cool stickers out to our patrons over at patreon.com/flashback64.
It's true.
Andrew's probably got some cool ones there.
I've been slowly sticking them on spare N64. That's why I was mad that I couldn't find the old ones I was talking about. So I've been trying to cover this thing.
I'll get you. I'll hook you up. But check that out. Let's give a special thank you to Lee, our Triforce tier patron.
Shout out Lee.
Lee's the man. McKenna, great job as always.
Good job, too.
And we'll see everybody next time for Virtual Chess 64. Bye.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Nick McConnell, and you caught me reading the instruction booklet for Street Fighter II in preparation for my weekly stream Instruction Derby, where I take a look at the creative, fun, and sometimes bizarre lost art of video game manuals. Did you know that, according to the manual for Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, Ryu was born in 1964, making him 62 years young, canonically? Happy birthday, Ryu. You're looking great. Did you also know that, per the manual for Laser Invasion on the Nintendo, the UN enters a conclave in order to select a new commando? Or did you know that the dancing enemies in Super Castlevania are named Paula Abgul and Fred Askare? These important facts and many more are discovered every Wednesday at noon Pacific on Instruction Derby, over at internet website twitch.tv/Nick McConnell, part of the Soundstone Network.